All right, guys, we are now going to get started here today. I'm very excited to be here for our brand new series called Brand Like a Boss and how to go from invisible to irresistible life. Here we go, guys, real time. My name is Sanjeev Kandolam from My Real Page, and each week I'm going to be working with one agent to give their brand and website a full refresh, including their strategy, visuals, messaging all using our platform tools. And if you're brand new to My Real Page, I just want to start by mentioning we have a whole library of on-demand webinars that you can watch that will show you how to use our platform step by step. So if you're joining us here for the first time, it's a great place to start to get set up properly before applying a lot of the tips that I'm going to be sharing here. So I'm going to just drop the link in the chat and you guys could see that there. So if you're again brand new, check those webinars out. We're going to be going maybe really quickly here today during the webinar as we're going to be trying to make some of these changes live for Cheryl as we go through this process. And that's who I'm also with here today. Our first guest for this whole webinar series is Cheryl from Winnipeg. We're going to be exploring her real estate business, talking about what's working, maybe what isn't, walk through some live changes, and have a checklist of to-dos that we can apply coming out of here today. And before I get, Cheryl here to be introduced, I just want to mention we had done, a example of this not too long ago with Harold, and this was the end outcome for Harold, by the way. He started with a website that's going to look very similar to Cheryl's using one of our themes, and we were able to go through and give it a huge facelift completely from top to bottom to make it so much more effective so that now you can go ahead and share it with confidence and really be able to start attracting some great leads into his business. So with that being said, Cheryl, why don't you kind of come on this call here with me? How you doing today?
Great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And so, Cheryl, tell us to maybe kind of get started with. Obviously, we're going to talk a lot about improving your website. I'm going to just pull up your website here to begin with. Sorry, this isn't the one. That's something I was kind of testing there for you. Let's go through this right here. So, this is your website. Tell us a little bit about which region your real estate business is in, how long you've been a realtor for, how long you've had your My Real Page website for. Let's kind of start with some of that.
Okay, so I am a realtor in like Winnipeg and the southeast Manitoba. So we're growing a lot, double the rate of the rest of Manitoba. So it's a busy place, and I've been a realtor for almost 3 years. Had my website probably close to that amount of time, but just looking to improve it and make sure that I'm doing all that I can in order to attract leads, and then, maybe have some good content on there, like a buyer's guide and things like that.
Love it. Okay, that's fantastic. So when it comes down to what Cheryl's talking about, guys, what we're going to get into right away here is talking about how to optimize a website like this. And there's nothing wrong with this website inherently. It's just the fact that when you get, register with My Real Page, you pick a theme, you load your content. Sometimes we have this expectation and leads are just going to come flying through the door, right? And that may not really be the case unless we kind of maybe put some work into it to really make it more personalized to us. And that's really what this is all about is how do we now take this website and make it much more personalized? That one of the things that, Cheryl and I have kind of talked about off the call is how do we start using this whole 23-point framework that I've talked about in my webinar series a couple weeks back, and how do we start using these points to kind of optimize the website? And one of the things I always like to talk about is that the reason why we have a website in the first place is to build trust and credibility with that of our visitors. This is your opportunity to build your personal brand, and that's what your website is for. Now, specifically, even in Cheryl's region, some of you guys actually have websites where you have the ability to have the MLS search and you got the map search and search all listings and you can do neighborhood searches. Well, in this specific board region, as we've talked about, Cheryl, we don't really have that same advantage now, do we? Right?
Yeah,
And so, with
correct.
that
So
being said, that is even that much more important, especially in this region. So, for those of you who are watching this and you're also like, yeah, I'm also in this region as well too, then this really does apply to you without really making sure your website is doing a great job of building your personal brand. Now, there are some tweaks and tricks as far as being able to create some search type things. Cheryl, I'm going to show you that today. believe it or not, there's some things you can
Mhm.
actually do, even though you don't have the MLS search, you don't have the same kind of map search functionality that other sites do. We'll kind of talk about what you can do instead as relates to that. But I'll come back and circle back to that point here in a second, okay? Now, a couple questions I have for you, though. You've been obviously in Realtor for 3 years. Tell me a little bit about maybe some of the niches that you work in. Obviously, you mentioned Southeast Manitoba is kind of where you're located, and I know you kind of made a mention of that right over here, like a Southeast
Mhm.
Manitoba real estate specialist. But maybe expand on that. Talk to me about some of the maybe people you work with, demographics you work with, maybe specific regions inside of Southeast Manitoba. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Okay, so I actually do some rural and small town listings, right? So there's different things with that, I guess, on acreages and things. Um, as far as demographic, I do, I do a lot of open houses, so I'm getting people that are just starting their search, a lot of first-time home buyers as well. So, and I'm passionate about helping educate them so that when we get to offering, they feel confident, right? That they're not second guessing, oh, is this the one, or things like that.
Love that. And that's awesome. When you talk about, being passionate about educating these first-time home buyers, which sounds like definitely like a avatar that we can obviously target and address and build some good content pages around. What kind of form of education do you feel like they need or what you like to provide? Tell me a little bit about that.
For me, just going through the home thoroughly and explaining different things, and even a little bit of maintenance and that. I mean, I've been through some tough home situations myself, so I just use that experience and knowledge and my development background too, just all comes into play to help educate them on home ownership and different issues that could arise, or maybe some red flags I'm seeing in the house.
Love that. That's awesome. And you mentioned you actually already have a buyer's guide. Is that right?
Um, to be honest, I'm not sure what's on there, so that's why I need help, right?
For
Yeah,
sure, for sure. I think when I was going through it, I didn't actually see a buyer's guide. So I went to your buying page, seemed like it
yeah,
was kind of like the stock content that we typically have on these pages here still. And same with the
yeah.
selling page as well, which is all good. So just to confirm though, like on your own outside of my real page, whether you did it on Canva or somewhere else, do you have any form of a buyer or seller guide? Just so that I know.
I have a seller guide for presenting at listings, but I don't have
Yep.
a great buyer's guide. So it's something that I thought, okay, A, I need to put this together. B, I need to get it on my website so that, they have that, right?
Love it.
As
Okay.
a
So we're going to
resource.
circle. Yeah,
Yes.
love that. We're going to circle back to that. That is a very, very good stuff that you're talking about. And guys, the reason why I'm asking this question, and this is so important for everybody to listen up and make sure you understand the importance of, is we're really talking about the importance on one of the chapters here that I talk about, which is lead magnets. And one of the reasons why people don't have leads come through their website is because they're not offering anything in their website. And if you want to have reciprocity take place where somebody provides you a name, email, and a phone number, you have to also really be willing to give something of value to them. Now, one thing about lead magnets as well, too, is that, and we'll talk about this together here, Cheryl, in a second, but if you call your seller's guide, you're really kind of doing it wrong.
Mhm.
You know, how many seller guides and buyer guides are out there in the real estate industry, huh? You know what I'm saying,
Mhm.
right? every
Yeah.
every realtor has a buyer guide and seller guide. So if you really want to make something that's going to be unique in a lead magnet, there's a formula ideally that you would want to follow that uses your avatar inside the name of the actual lead magnet and a benefit directly inside as well too within that lead magnet's name. So for example, one of the things that you mentioned right now, Cheryl, was that of a first-time home buyers, right? And you love
Mhm.
educating them, being able to explain things to them, being able to help them out with tough home situations. So, one of the things you could possibly do is you can build out a lead magnet that's called the first time buyer's guide to avoiding the top 10 mistakes in home ownership. right?
Okay.
And when you think about that label sounds a lot better than buyer's guide, doesn't it? All right.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so when we actually get into producing a lead magnet, that lead magnet can actually contain some of these also tough home situations that you've also been through and the knowledge that you gain from that. And you can package that all up into this guide. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we'll come back and talk about how we can produce that later on. But that is a really, really important subject matter that I wanted to just get clear here. So this is good. So you also work in rural small town listings on acreages. So if acreages and small town listings are also a thing, that also represents a topic on your website you want to kind of, obviously have available to talk about, right? So this topic of rural small town listings or acreages, that could really be 1 or 2 pages, depending on how you want to maybe segment that. First time home buyers was your other segment that you mentioned. Was there any other demographic or avatar that you potentially consider working with? Could be downsizers, could be upsizers, could be, whatever, right? Investors, I mean, farmers, you name it. Tell me about that.
Yeah, probably I would guess I would say upsizers, right? People with growing families.
Love it. And in your region, I know some regions, depending on obviously where we live, there's people relocating to the area or they're coming in for different reasons. Is there anything like that that's happening in your location?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we have some people, and I've helped people relocate from Ontario, BC, right, for lower cost of living. And also people from the city moving out to acreages for a variety of reasons, right? They want more space for their kids, or they're just looking to get out of the city and have a quieter life, even if they're downsizing, right? But at the same time, getting more land and living a different lifestyle.
Yeah, love that. Okay, fantastic. Well, yeah, BC is not cheap. Okay, I'll tell you that, right? We always kind of
Mhm.
joke that BC stands for bring cash. But
Mhm.
anyways,
Mhm.
when it comes down to these different topics, this is good because all of this can really kind of go into that of a brand new kind of website menu. As right now, your menu has these kind of tabs across the top: home, properties, buying, selling, blog, and about, but it doesn't really kind of address the avatars head on. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah.
So if we could maybe kind of revise this menu structure, and typically this is kind of like how I almost kind of get started with, like when I think about building a website, I always think to myself, can we just kind of map out the entire menu before we kind of get into building content? So if this is how our current menu looks like right now, we would essentially revise this based on a brand new kind of like list of like headers and kind of topics, and that could be that of your brand new now menu moving forward. And so we'll keep obviously the home tab. Home is necessary, properties is necessary for all your listings, but the other tabs where you see it says buying, selling, blog, and about is kind of where we want to maybe modify some things. Okay, so buying would stay as a tab, but buying would have different tabs underneath it now. So we could have, for example, a topic tab for first time home buyers. Okay. We can have a topic tab for upsizers and up to another tab for relocation and another tab for maybe that of acreages. You could, and maybe I'll ask you this because I don't want to, answer it for you, but like, would you say like the rural small town acreages combine it into one, or would you make those two separate things?
Mm, it could be the same. I mean, there's different things like septic tank and field and wells with regarding acreages or and hobby farms and things like that. But I mean, small town living is also very close to acreages, so it could be kind of a whole slower pace of life vibe, right? That includes farmers markets and things like that.
Gotcha. Okay, sounds good. All right, so we're gonna make a note of that, and I'll just kind of leave it that as acreages for now as like the top level item.
Okay.
I'm making notes by the way, and I'll share my screen with all my notes here in a second because that's
Mhm.
going to be where we're going to get started with a lot of the work we're going to be doing here. But this is good. So one of the things that I'm also going to add here as well too is, let me just see here. We got a blog, we have an about page, which talks about you and your testimonials. And then we have contact. Okay. So let me share this. I'm going to go over here to my doc. So I got a doc going on for Cheryl's action plan, you guys. And this is something that, again, if you have the opportunity to be a part of our series, this is something I would really do for you. So help you build out an action plan because for the time that we have today, we're going to get some things kind of done, but there's some other things we're going to have as far as a to-do list of items to work on there on after coming out of this call to really help you improve your website. But take a look at this now, Cheryl. This would be the example of your brand new kind of menu structure as you kind of see it right now. Properties, of course, would still have some of the tabs that we saw underneath, by the way. So you had obviously your featured listings, you obviously have your office listings. Okay. The
Hmm.
part that you can actually do, I'm just going to show this to you real quick inside of your website. Where is it? Right over here. Inside of your website, you actually have the capability to actually take some of these guys right here, which are your condos, this right here, which says industrial, commercial investment, residential, rental, farm, open houses. You can take these and actually make them into searches in your drop-down menu. Okay,
Okay.
just so you know. So I'm going to show this to you right now, real quick, underneath the office listings page to show you how this works. And again, this applies for a lot of you guys that are based out of the same region as Cheryl. If you come into that of the listing section, you're going to notice there's a section here that gives you the ability to showcase some filters. So I'm actually going to basically showcase the filters right now. So I'm going to reveal them. So I'm going to show the slider filters. I'm going to click on Save Weblet. And then what that does is that it's going to now showcase, basically what I can have here on the side. And I think, I'm not sure if that loaded properly, but yeah, I think there's actually supposed to be one more thing there. I'll kind of look it up afterwards. But the bottom line is that you'll notice that these blue labels over here, if we only want to show open houses, if I click on this link over here, notice how this link over here changes like this. Do you see that there? Okay, at the
Hmm.
top. If
Yep.
I grab that now at the very top, and if I come back into that of your website menu, I can actually add that in as an actual page right underneath my properties tab, just so you know. Okay. So
Okay.
this can now be a new item that can say open houses, because in case somebody just wants to see open houses, you have the ability to showcase all the open houses in your office just like that without somebody having to click on another button. Do you see what I mean by that? Okay.
Yep.
So now when they click on this, it takes them directly there. You could do the exact same thing for farm. You could do the exact same thing for this, for condos, for residential, for rental, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So even though you don't have the ability to build predefined searches, we can technically add all of these as things that people can click on just to make their search experience that much better. Make sense? Okay.
Hmm.
Um, there's the ability to also add some price filters, and I'll come back and check on that a little bit later, but let's kind of move on. The other thing I want to talk a little bit about is your logo. And I right now notice that you're using the theme logo. Do you currently have a logo of any kind when it comes
No.
to your brand? Nothing? Okay,
No.
which is all good. So one thing I've talked about before in this webinar, guys, is that you don't have to go pay thousands of dollars to get someone to design a logo for you. Canva is a logo place that you can go to find a logo, or you can always find freelancers on Fiverr or any kind of freelance type website out there to make you one. Cheryl, I just kind of drafted you one real quick just so you can see
Hmm.
this kind of concept. Again, this is not something that we have to kind of work with right now. I'm just saying that this is something we should work with as it relates to building out a buyer's guide, seller's guide, and all other marketing material that you do so that you have a recognizable logo that goes with that of your brokerage name. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yes.
At the end of the day, this is about your personal brand and your website needs to convey that. And so having something that's just unique, that's styled to you, your color palette, which we can obviously talk about as well too. Currently, this website is using the exact same color palette that normally comes with the theme. And not saying that there's like hundreds of like these Southeast Manitoba real estate agents using my real page, right? But like if there were, and they were also using a very similar theme as you can start seeing how all of a sudden their site looks like yours. Do you know what I mean? Right.
Hmm.
And we don't want their site to look like ours. We want your site to look unique to you. Make sense? Okay.
Yes.
So when it comes down to that, we'll work with the logo design together. And again, like I said, guys, all I did was I went on Canva, found this template by just searching up logos right here at the top. I opened it up, typed in logos, saw some here that I kind of thought were pretty cool. Clicked on this one over here because again, some are only available in the pro plan. So unless there's like an actual pro plan that you have with Canva, then you're going to stick to the ones that don't have that little pro symbol. and you'll be able to work with them. And like I said, I worked with this one over here, typed in Cheryl's letters, typed in her name, put the word real estate underneath, and that's it. And if I now go ahead and just download this over here off to the side, this could potentially be the brand new logo that we use in that of her website. And that also means that we'll change her fonts, we'll change her kind of look and feel for that to overall make it that much better as well too. So let's go back to my doc over here, which is something that I just talked about. So creating a logo, check. We can download one from Canva, and we can also work on a color palette that also matches what you're kind of going for. When it comes down to color palettes, by the way, something that I like to share with agents as well too is you can actually look up a color palette generator online to be able to try to get like a feel for what you're maybe looking for. Canva also has this as well too, by the way. If you want to search a different color palettes to see what kind of works for you, you can actually go through different color combinations and actually take a look at things that can really kind of go well with your website. So for example, if you want to do some cool blues like this, these blues could technically be that of integrated into your website. And you don't have to pick all those colors, of course. You can just pick maybe one or two colors at best. But that's something, Cheryl, I'm going to work with you afterwards with in that of
Hmm.
establishing these two things for sure. Is what color palette should we go with and what logo should we go with? Okay. So
Yeah.
that's an absolute must that we're going to get cleared away because it'll help us with our lead magnet development. Now, we've actually gone ahead and updated the sitemap. So that's something that we've just kind of done right now. These would be the brand new labels inside of our website menu. So I haven't gone ahead and punched them in yet inside of our actual menu, but that's something that I would go ahead and start doing over here is underneath menu navigation. Anytime you're making edits to your website, you guys, you want to switch it over to staging because that way you can start kind of practicing some of these things that I'm talking about, but without anybody maybe seeing it live quite yet. So if I switch it to staging, I can go in now and go ahead and change all of these labels as it relates to her business. So like I mentioned, she has some new kind of pages that we want to build. And some of these new pages that we're looking to build are pages like the first time homebuyers page, the upsizers page, the relocation page, the acreages page. Then we'll have the mortgage calculator. Now on the selling side, which I haven't brought up yet, Cheryl, let me just talk a little bit about this now too, is you have your home evaluation, which is the standard typical home evaluation form. But another page that I want to help you create is a page that talks about your marketing strategy. Okay. You
Yeah.
mentioned you have like a seller presentation that you obviously share with people in person, but you can also take the time to take some of the things that you do for sellers and talk about it on a dedicated page that describes what the marketing strategy is behind the page. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yes.
And so this is something that I've actually really been trying to help out at a large with clients. And I'm actually in the process of releasing a page that will help out everybody with this. I'll give you guys a quick little sneak preview of the page. But this is an example of a page, Cheryl, that you and I can build together that actually talks about your marketing strategy. And it will showcase your photography, videography. It can showcase if you do any online advertising, strategic social media marketing. So even a photo of that of your Facebook or your Instagram showcasing what that looks like. Things like email campaigns, MLS syndication, open houses, and private showings. And then a nice kind of call to action form at the bottom to schedule a free consultation. Does that make sense? Okay.
Hmm.
So this kind of a concept of a page is something that we would want to add as it relates to the marketing strategy. Now, the other one, I've just added this recently because I'm not sure if you recall, and tell me if this rings a bell or not, but I had talked about these brand new landing pages that we have just released at my real page. And these landing pages were called the success stories. Did you recall
Okay.
this at all?
Yep.
Okay, fantastic. So one of the things that you want to leverage for your situation, especially given the fact that we don't have things like the MLS mass search and predefined searches and things like that, is you'll probably want to leverage some of these to really showcase and highlight what some of your past clients have gone through and the challenges you've helped them overcome as it relates to selling their home. And it could be an acreage case scenario. Heck, it could be a first time home buyer situation. As in, you can take this same page rather than making it about that of a home being sold, you can make it about a story about somebody that you helped buy a home. Does that make sense? Okay.
Hmm.
So adding in a couple case studies will do a great job of like actually really showcasing your expertise because no one's really ever had your experience. There's a lot of things that maybe realtors can quote unquote clone out there, but it's hard to clone a story because a story is very unique to you. Does that make sense? So
Yes.
one thing I'm going to eventually ask you for, probably not here today, but I'll ask you for eventually, is a story that we can feature as it relates to a buyer or seller or one of the avatars. Because if we can have something like that on the website, we're going to do a great job of attracting more people like that as well too. Make sense? Okay.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes down to your about stuff, one of the things I'd asked you about the last week was there any credibility markers as it relates to stats, data points, things that can increase what we call the perceived likelihood of achievement? And that's something that I talk about on this slide specifically, which is that with your website, you want to build trust and boost credibility using things like numbers, accolades, and awards or testimonials. Could you share with me like what you maybe have as it relates to that?
Yeah, so I do have a few awards, so I could put the logos for on there, I guess. The other thing would be accolades or testimonials. I do have a link to Rate My Agent, and those go on there also. But I think we were talking about maybe we could beef it up a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So I saw the fact, and this is something that's so great that Cheryl does have. Some of you guys might also have this as well too, but you've never really integrated your reviews with your website. I would highly recommend that you do this. So if you have a widget, and there's many out there, Rank My Agents, one of them, Rate My Agents, another. We also got Google reviews out there, which I think you also have a Google review page as well too. I think I saw it not too long ago over here as well when I was kind of taking a look at your online profile. So all of those things are things that we can definitely use. I'm just going to pull it into the screen right over here. Okay. So, something like this as well too. We can integrate these reviews directly into the website and we can make it look a lot nicer as well too. I'm not personally a big fan of the Rate My Agent widget, how it gets embedded like this, Cheryl. But what we
Hmm.
can do is we can have like the homepage widget be a carousel that's just a little bit nicer. So it's kind of like a static carousel where you feature like your nicest reviews of what people have said about you. And then
Yeah.
on the read more page, the read more page that takes someone to the testimonial page, that's where we can embed this widget on there instead. Make sense? Okay.
Yeah.
So that's my recommendation as to what we should probably do with that. So that's great. So you have some logos. You can share those with me, by the way, and we can obviously get them added. We'll move the Rate My Agent widget over to the testimonial page, and we'll add a testimonial slider on the homepage that shows and highlights your best reviews. Okay. And so we'll kind of take the time to do that as far as the update goes on that side. Anything else on your about page, by the way? Anything else about you that would be really helpful for people to know? I think you mentioned you had like a development background. I'm not sure if there's anything there that we can kind of like, talk more about. But tell me if there's anything like that that makes you unique as a realtor in your market.
I think for me, in my market, there is that, but I'm involved in the community through some different groups and boards and things like that. So I think it shows a lot to who I am, my character, but that I also know a lot about the area, right? Like I know the ins and outs. I know where where things are and who's who, and that's helpful as, especially for people new to the area, right? Or relocating from another province or something.
Definitely. So that's a huge thing on your about page. And one of the things I definitely mentioned in my webinar series as well too is that there's probably, core pages that you want to build. And the Why You page is a really important page that when people ask why should they work with you, that page should definitely have what you're talking about in there as it relates to the community work that you do and how involved you are. So sometimes people ask me this question about their about page too, like in terms of the content you put over here, should you keep this content just all real estate related or should you show some personality? And I always tell people like you want to maybe take the time to show some of your personality here because of a principle called unity, that people love doing business with people that they truly like and trust and they feel like they truly know just through that of the subconscious feeling of like, wow, you're kind of like me. And they see whether it be photos. And I think you've got some great photos that maybe we can use all throughout the website as well too, Cheryl, if I'm not mistaken. I think you kind of got a photo shoot done, so you might have some different shots that we can integrate
Yeah.
into the page. but we can
Yeah.
totally dress up your about page that showcases not just you as a realtor, but you as somebody who's truly involved in the community as well. Okay.
Mhm.
And talk about some of those different things that you're a part of. So that's fantastic. Now, with that being said, let's go back to my doc here and a couple more things I want to share with you that I was able to look up for you. Now that I got some of these other things out of the way, is one of the things we want to do is we want to update some of the basic aspects of SEO on your website. Now, I just want to ask you, do you kind of know what SEO is? Are you kind of familiar with that?
Yes, but how to optimize it, I'm not super familiar.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about that because one of the things, guys, with your My Real Page websites is you have the ability to put in proper page titles and proper page descriptions for all of your pages. So right now, for example, Cheryl, when we actually look up your, say name on Google search, you'll notice that your top title comes in like this. You see that there? Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
And then you have this like random description that Google kind of grabs and puts it right underneath over here. Okay.
Mhm.
So you actually have control over this. You get to decide actually what you want this to say and what you want this to say underneath that. And that is all controlled, by the way, right over here. Okay. So this section, as you can see, this is kind of what's showing up over here. Now, this description part is not being picked up by Google yet, and it's very likely because you haven't probably manually gone in and requested that this page gets updated to that of Google Search Console. And if that's all new to you and it's kind of like I'm speaking like a foreign language, don't worry, it's
Yeah.
okay. All right, we'll help you out with that. All right. So for those of you guys who are obviously attending this webinar and obviously want that same kind of help, obviously I'm going to do this for Cheryl, but one of the things I want you to do is I want you to watch this webinar right here. I talk specifically, dropping a link in the chat for you guys who are coming in here joining us for the first time. You want to take the time to know how can you do SEO optimization with my real page. I dropped two links in the chat right now so that you can actually take a look at that because that's going to help you out a lot in terms of discoverability. So one of the things that we'll do together, Cheryl, is we'll obviously set proper page titles and descriptions up because right now, like I said, they're missing for all of your pages. I took a look at them and I realized that it's something that's an easy kind of low hanging fruit. And we can take the time to update all of that here, including these titles, descriptions, and all of that. Makes sense? Okay. So
Awesome.
that's one thing we're going to take the time to do. Now, the second thing we're going to also do here is make sure it's been uploaded to Google Analytics and updated to Google Search Console. Now, it could be wrong because I did see this inside of your backend, but you have added in a piece of code right over here. And for those of you guys who are trying to add Google Analytics, you paste the code right over here in the advanced section of your website tab underneath your site settings. But question here, is this actually a Google Analytics code here for you there? Do you know if you set that up?
I don't recall. So,
Okay, all
yeah.
good, no problem. That's all good, no problem. The reason why I talk about this, you guys, is because in our dashboard screen, you will notice that we do have website traffic right over here. And this traffic is telling us what views the pages are maybe getting. But these views and pages and information may not be as detailed as we could possibly get if we decided to get it through Google Analytics. And Google Analytics will do a better job of tracking that information and also providing additional information as you see fit using events and so on and so forth using their tool. So that is something that we can actually get integrated into the website. And I have a full kind of tutorial as well too as to how you actually set up Google Analytics. So for those of you guys who are kind of wondering, I don't have Google Analytics set up either. I always tell people if your site's not producing much traffic or leads for you, the first thing you want to do is figure out what's going on the site. Get the Google Analytics tracking code connected. Do you even have people coming to the page? If you do have people coming to the page, what pages are they visiting? And with Google Analytics, you actually have the ability to drill into that kind of information, which to me is a really, really great kind of like tool that you can utilize to better understand how your website is actually performing. And so just take a look at that when you have a chance. I'm actually going to pull this up into my screen just so I can show you guys where I'm going to do this for Cheryl here in a second with adding her Google Analytics tracking ID. But I'm just going to show you how that once you have it set up, you'll notice there's a section here called Explore. And underneath Explore, you guys, there's a section called Path Exploration. And what that helps you do is it really helps you understand like where did people go when they came to your page. So if you change this to that of like page title and what is it? I think it's page path. Let me just double check. Yeah. So it can actually show you like, these people that showed up here, what page did they visit? So can you guys see that there? Like 20 people came to the home page, 3 people went to the about page. Can you see that? Okay. All right. Neighborhood guide, 2 people went there. One person went to the new build page. So it really helps you understand your marketing initiatives. If you did something in this last 7 days, as an example, you guys, you did like a bus bench advertisement, maybe you did a social media advertisement, whatever it may be, you can see how did that translate into views by using Google Analytics to give you what we call path exploration. So after they clicked on the about page, where did they go after that? And by the way, that little forward slash thing, that's just your home page, by the way. That's an indicator of what that is, okay? You can also change this to, I think, page title, and the page title will actually use your titles of your pages if you know what they are instead. I like to use the page path because I actually know what the page paths are. Example, blog page, about page, neighborhood guide page, just to give you an example. So that's something that we can set up so that we know kind of where Cheryl's business is going. Let's go to the next thing. When it comes into your Google My Business profile, Cheryl, I notice a big opportunity for improvement, which is something that we can do when it comes down to making it a lot more robust. So if I go to your Google My Business profile, do you notice over here on the sidebar, one of the things that we can add in here is we can definitely add in a longer kind of description as to,
Okay.
kind of, from the business. You actually have about 800 characters that you can add in, quite a lot of text and keywords as it
Mhm.
relates to your audience. So that can be a huge boost on that part alone. The other part here too is that you're actually missing a section at the bottom of this called updates, where you can push some updates here into your page, where you can kind of leave a post. That's actually basically free kind of marketing that you can do for your website, where you can share blog posts and different kind of pages that you create. So we'll kind of talk about how to set that up inside of a Google My Business profile. The other thing is a Q&A section too. So there's a Q&A section you can also add inside of a Google My Business profile. Now, if I actually just open up a single profile where I have the ability to edit, let me just show you guys right over here. Do you see this section that says questions and answers, right? So when you're logged in, by the way, you can see all of this. So obviously I'm not logged into your profile, so I couldn't see any of that. So if I was you, one of the things I would do over here is I'd come over here and actually click on ask a question, and I would actually pose a question to yourself that you can answer. And these are questions that probably your target audience is probably asking too, as it relates to buying homes in Southeast Manitoba. So you can get really creative with this, by the way, because you can ask whatever questions you want, and those will also definitely show up in out of some results that people are searching up online. Now, the other part as well too is, like I said, this little add an update section. So where it says add an update, you'll notice you have the ability to include an update, include an event, an offer, etc. You can drop in a photo, and that will show up over here inside of this as an actual post that you've now made. And then the last thing I was talking about here is making sure you've also added in your services. So making sure all of your services have been added. You can actually add additional services here as well too. So outside of the ones that Google provides, you can actually, basically type in additional ones, and you can actually add in products. And this is something that most people don't know, because most people think you can only add in products if you're actually selling physical products. But you can add in products such as listings, and you can add in products such as your buying and selling services. An example I always like to show, I think it's the Soul Sisters group out of Edmonton. I think that's the one that has actually, no, it's a different one. It's something sold Kelowna. Okay, I can't remember the group's name, but they've actually done a really good job of adding in specific products. And you can see how this looks like when you're actually making posts like this. You see what I mean by that? Okay. So you have the ability to kind of do something very similar with your profile, and that's something that we will do together. The other thing, I mentioned this last week in my webinar when it came down to the Google Reviews training, which I'm also going to drop that link in the chat for everybody. That Google Review training, I've also talked about adding in other areas where you probably have not considered opening up a profile on, which is like Bing and Yelp. So as you know, Cheryl, Bing is where people search on Microsoft. It's not on Google. So when you have a Microsoft or Windows device, by default, your search engine that opens up is Microsoft Bing. So on Microsoft Bing, you can actually open up what we call a profile on Microsoft Bing. So let me just search up Bing profiles right here, Bing places for business. Right over here, you and I can actually basically import. I can click on where it says new user over here. Later on, what we can actually do is we can import your Google My Business profile, get instantly
Right.
verified, and basically have another profile like this sitting on Microsoft. So anybody doing any searching for example, realtor near me out in that area can have your profile actually show up and be visible. Okay. So I noticed that was missing. I made it a to-do list item. And you can
Yeah.
also do it on Yelp. That's a little bit more optional, but it just gives you another area where people can obviously leave reviews. And then any other profile that you have not built a profile on, we call these microsites. So those are things like Facebook, Instagram, having like a X account, having a YouTube account, whatever like you have not yet done. It's important to make sure you have all of those bases established because they all have an aspect of SEO value to you because your site's going to be on all of those websites. It's going to have your URL on there. So speaking about that, that has a lot to do with a concept called backlinks. And one thing I noticed on your website in two areas is that you actually have two things not pointing to your web page. So what I mean by backlinks is this, just to kind of back it up a little bit to explain the concept. When it comes down to your domain, and your domain is this domain right over here called Manitoba homesforsale.ca. When you
Hmm.
have other domains, Cheryl, pointing to your domain, it increases the value of your specific domain. Okay. So if I had a domain and let's just say, all these other domains out there pointed to your website in some shape, way, or form, as I mentioned, as a referral, whatever, it could be out of a listing of some kind. When we point to your domain, we're passing you off what we call domain authority. And to Google's kind of algorithm, it basically says that your website has more value on the internet because other websites are also pointing to it. Does that make sense? Okay. So
Yes.
if nobody's pointing to your website, then Google doesn't look at that and say, well, that's therefore a credible or valuable website. Tim, thanks for the question. Yes, this whole webinar is being recorded and you can actually revisit this afterwards as well too. I'll talk about that at the very end. When it comes down to this domain, what I would end up doing is on your realtor.ca profile. And for those of you guys who have not done this, on your realtor.ca profile, you actually should have a section right over here that says visit agent website. And can you see this, Cheryl, right here? There's no
Yeah.
visit agent website, okay? This
Yeah.
is huge, by the way, because realtor.ca happens to have quite a lot of what we call domain authority, because there's a lot of like linking that actually happens to realtor.ca. So if realtor.ca can point to your website, that is an incredible amount of what we call linked juice that gets transferred over to your website with that of a referral. The second area, by the way, I looked over for you was your office website. So the second area, obviously, you're going to be listed on by default, you guys, is your office website. And take a look at this right here. You see this button, Cheryl, agent website?
Mhm.
Okay. You click
Yeah.
on it. Unfortunately, it takes you to the Royal
Ah,
LePage website. Okay. So it's just, I know. Okay. This is why you're here, right?
this
This
is
is why
why
you're
I'm
here.
here. This is why I
All
need
right.
you.
That's exactly it. So this is low hanging fruit type items, you guys, that just send an email to your broker, send a message over into your realtor.ca profile, get that updated so that it's pointing to your domain and therefore providing you valuable SEO juice to your website. Okay. So that is something I made a note for as well too in that of our checklist. Okay. Some of you guys on this call are probably rushing right now to your realtor.ca profile, just checking to
Mhm.
see if you got your website link. All right. Last couple of things I want to talk about before I kind of wrap it up with some kind of next steps and some edits. I'm going to make some kind of edits on the fly here, you guys, but I'm not going to do everything. I'm going to show you some things that I like to do as far as getting started. And that will help out anybody on this call with some basics. But last couple of suggestions I had here, we already talked about changing the brand color. We already talked about telling your story better on the about page. The last thing I want to add in is just local photography. Okay. As it
Mhm.
relates to your area, your website would be that much more better if all of a sudden the actual pages, in terms of what we saw, just had photos that represented your region that much more. So I know this photo, if I'm not mistaken, that might be a photo out of Winnipeg. I could be wrong, but I think it is. Is that right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay, good stuff. So I know you guys, if you check out our kind of backend library, what I mean by a backend library is that if you hover over any of our photos, and you could be using any one of our themes, when you get to this section where you can edit the images, there's a section for you to click on change. When you click on that, you will see a whole bunch of photos here. that you can search from. And so if you know Cheryl types in Winnipeg, oh, there's that photo right there that you used, right? And so there's a whole bunch of photos you can choose from, but that also may not really represent, you know, specifically your area, Cheryl, right? If it's
Yeah.
Southeast Manitoba, we might have some different photos out there, especially if that's kind of what we're trying to focus on in terms of our specialty, including with other photos that we want to maybe have as relates to, for example, maybe acreages, right? So if we want to type in acreages, there might be some good shots we can use as it relates to that over here. And then don't forget to use pixels as well too, because they all offer a different set of images as well too, right? So here's some acreage shots on the pixel side that you can also take a look at. So this is something that I would also say would improve your website overnight, is also by going through the process of updating any other photos that you may have to be more indicative of your region and specific location. Okay. All right. With that being said, Cheryl, before I kind of dive into some things, how is that so far? Everything we've talked about, like in terms of
Yeah.
your sitemap, the kind of plan of action, some of these little checklist items,
Yeah.
questions, thoughts, comments, anything. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's super helpful. Yeah, I mean the SEO, talking about that, and the, game changers for sure. And yeah, adding more of my story and more personality, and I like it, like even photos that I do when I'm out on the road and I'm taking photos, right? Like maybe there's some that are, a high enough quality that I could be putting on here.
Yep, absolutely. That's fantastic. And you know, what would be one thing that maybe you can say you took away from today that as and it wasn't maybe something to do with like what I have already on the screen, but it could be a lot to do with like how we think about a website or how we think about planning for the website. What's maybe one thing that you maybe didn't really think about, but now it's like, okay, that's a really good way to go about it. That's kind of like an aha moment for you. What was that for you, maybe as a takeaway?
I think, dialing it down right to appeal to your target market, right? As
Hmm.
opposed to just an overview blanket buyers and sellers guide, right? Is just to really make it more attractive to them, but then also have me being more attractive in showing more of me, more of my personality, who I am, what I'm involved in, like really dial up that about me section, right? So that they know, that they feel like they know me before we even have our first phone call.
Love it. That is so good. I love it. That is a
Yeah.
great takeaway. When it comes down to what Cheryl mentioned, you guys, I think this is a very important piece that I want to hit on back on the webinar slides is really you want to start off with really asking yourself this question, which is why is your website existing in the first place? And as you can see in the bold here, is people don't really come to your website to come search for listings. They can really do that anywhere. They come to your site to learn about you, your expertise, your credibility, why you're the right choice. And we're in a day and age today where people have so much information available that you know, at the end of the day, like people do a lot of their searching online before they even pick up the phone to call someone. And but if your website is an extension of you, I mean, yeah, I hate to say it this way, guys, but like, you know, we've all heard the saying before, right? First impressions make a lasting impression, right? We've all heard that before. So you dress to impress, so you dress for success. We've all heard those kind of sayings. And while that's true in person, it's also true online as well, too, right? You know, at the end of the day, your website and all of your different digital assets are an extension of who you are. So if they have a experience with what you have out there online, and it's not a great experience, you guys, think about what they think about you as an agent then. Does that make sense? And again, we're
Mhm.
not talking about your referrals. We're not talking about like the people are going to work with you anyways because, you know, it's your friend's friend or your, you know, your cousin, or I'm not talking about those people. They're going to work with you anyways, even if your website sucks. Makes
Yeah.
sense. The reality is
Yeah.
they like you, your family, right? We're talking about
Yeah.
strangers here. We're talking about
Yeah.
finding leads. And these are the people that we want to have engage with us. And as Cheryl said it so well, we want them to get to know us before they actually got to know us. Okay. Now,
Yeah.
with that being said, let's kind of dial it in and do some things live here on this call. And I'm going to show you guys how I kind of get started with this. So I started my little conversation here using our tool and our friend ChatGPT. And again, you don't need to purchase ChatGPT to do this, you guys. You can just set up a free account and you have limits on how much you can use it in a day, which is all good. Just, you know, work within your limits and it's all good. It's not like you're going to do this all maybe in one go, and that's totally fine. So in this conversation, the first thing I'm setting up the Chat GPT to do is I wanted to help build content now for this website. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to feed it a little bit about who Cheryl is to begin with. Big mistake that people make when they use AI tools is that the first thing they do is they say things like, help me build this page, and they start talking about the page they want to build, but they don't feed any of the thing to the AI for context as to who are you. And unless you talk about who you are and maybe even give it maybe a piece of your writing that you've kind of put together, then it can't really kind of sound like you. Does that make sense? Right. So
Mhm.
in this case here, and this is something, of course, Cheryl, you can do the same thing on your account, is you can just go ahead and drop in some notes. And so what I dropped in here, obviously I was taking notes a little bit earlier. So a little bit about you, kind of showing your background. And then it kind of already spat out some things for me, as you can see over here, but I ignored all of that to begin with. I obviously went ahead and built a handful of different pages, and I kind of slowed it down. I said, okay, well, here's my bio to get to know more about me. So I copy and pasted your bio from that of your about page. And then it's okay, here's a more detailed bio. It's kind of updated your kind of about section over here, why I work with Cheryl. And see, things like this now are really good because we're now kind of taking some key aspects about what makes Cheryl kind of unique. The number one question that really anybody's asking when they're thinking about working with you is, why do I work with you? And you have some now kind of quick bullet points that you can maybe kind of run with as far as what are some of those unique selling points to you. And then we can now share these on that of an about page in some more detail. So this is how I would actually go about building out some of my content when it comes down to that on my website. So if I go back here to Cheryl's page over here, one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to go right over here to her about page. And inside of her about page, which is currently what we see over here, I'm going to switch this over to staging. Don't mind the theme kind of change at the very top. I was just kind of, playing around with some things. Just in regards to the theme change, by the way, if some of you guys watched my webinar about the new theme, it's actually currently now available live. So if you actually want to change themes, you'll actually see it inside of the theme picker. It is live now to be able to be selected. But anyways, here's the thing, Cheryl. So one thing we're going to have on your about page is we're going to really have it start off with of talking about you right away from the beginning, because right now it kind of goes into this stuff, but there's no real kind of photo of you. Text is really
Yep.
kind of small and it's kind of
Yeah.
hard to read, right? So
Wow.
I'm going to change it up here a little bit. So, the first thing we're going to do, let me just kind of save this on staging. And I'll show you guys what I'll do just in a couple minutes here with some of the changes that we'll make. Oh, I don't know if that didn't save there for a second. Let me just go back and do that. All right. Oh, what the heck is going on here? It doesn't want to cooperate. All right, let me just try to add a different block here instead. I think my page is cached perhaps. So let me just quickly add in. I'm just going to add in a block like this from our marketing blocks. Okay, there we go. All right, so let's do this. First of all, we don't need to add an intro box. We're going to remove that. And what we're going to do here is we're going to basically have a section where we have essentially your photo on one side and your name on the other. So let's put this over here and let's put this underneath. And I'm not going to put this full bio there, but I'm just going to leave it there for now because we're going to break it up a little bit just to show you just some kind of ways that we can do this. And then this right here, I believe is your photo, Cheryl. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this image, which is this photo right over here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put your photo on this side of the block, just so you can see kind of how this looks like. Nice kind of portrait shot. And we want the entire photo to be shown. So there it is. And let's go and remove this little ribbon here at the very top. So we don't want no ribbons over here. Okay. So there you go. So you have your photo on one side, you have your text on the other side. And what we can do, just because of how you're positioned, maybe we'll put your photo on the other side and we'll put the text on this side, just because you're facing this
Mm,
way and it
yeah.
just looks a little bit nicer like that. Now this text content over here, all of this content can essentially be aligned over here to the left. And that way it looks nice as it is kind of next to the photo. Makes sense?
Mhm,
Okay.
mhm.
Now we can change the size of this photo so it doesn't actually have to be this kind of large. But in terms of the actual about page content now, what it can say to ChatGPT, let me go back over here and let's actually go to the one that I had open, is help me build a compelling about page that increases the perceived likelihood of achievement when users land on the page as they think about using me as a realtor. Okay, and then let's just see what we can maybe kind of get. So this now becomes some page content that I can work with. And so how I use this content, of course, I can, play around with that. This is not something that's kind of set in stone. But, something like this where it says your trusted partner in Southeast Manitoba real estate success, that might be something that I'll kind of, maybe add in over here instead of that previous kind of line that was in there. So that's something that I could have, or in this part, I'm going to put about Cheryl. And one thing, you guys, as a pro tip, just make sure every one of your pages has a H1 label as it relates to SEO. Other headings can be heading two to support, but heading number one should always be for SEO purposes. Okay. So just to make sure you know that, that's a pro tip. Just make sure you put an H1 that is always describing the topic of the page. So there you go. To follow up on this, by the way, too, Cheryl, take a look at this. I can also say, provide me a 150 character page description and a 70 character page title for SEO. So this now kind of ties into what we talked about, which is, hey, we want to make sure all these pages are coming in properly coded with the proper title and description. So now underneath the settings section, I'm going to put that in there. So it looks like this. And I'm also going to be able to add underneath that as well too, that of the description component as well. And of course, these are things that can be modified and tweaked because right now it's only maybe speaking about rural, but that's not what you do. So we can say award-winning Southeast Manitoba realtor, and then we can just leave it at that. We can, even add something if we wanted to extra beyond that, but let's just leave it like that for now. And then the description part, you have some more characters. So trusted Southeast Manitoba realtor. And this realtor part too, by the way, I think just based on, kind of the rules of how you use the word realtor, you have to put the realtor with the little R thing as well too. So just make sure you guys are just following the proper protocol for that. As you can see, I'm doing that right now, just replacing that like that. So trusted Southeast Manitoba realtor. Cheryl helps first time and rural buyers with expert guidance for smooth, confident home buying experience. So over here, I'm going to change this part to say helps buyers and sellers with expert guidance for smooth, confident home, smooth, confident real estate journey. Okay. So that's what we're going to kind of leave that as. We're going to hit save. So that's now all set up. So now she's got, a couple of things tweaked on this page already. They're going to make this page look a lot better than the existing page that we started with. Now, a couple other things that it was included here was things like this, where it provided some text like, why choosing me means you're one step closer to your goals. This is where we can really kind of chunk down the bio a little bit and do a better job of actually conveying that of her credibility without making it so hard to read on the page. So as an example here, watch me kind of just change this section right over here. So it says buying or selling a home is one of the most important decisions you'll make. Having the right guy makes all the difference. I'm Cheryl, an award-winning, top-rated realtor with nearly 3 years of experience helping clients across Southeast Manitoba find the perfect rural small town and acreage properties that specialize in working with first-time buyers, families, and anyone looking to make a smart investment in their future. So again, people don't read this entire thing. What I'm going to do, Cheryl, as you'll see here, is I'm going to take aspects of this and I'm going to go ahead and bold it, right? And when you start bolding things like this, people's eyes will ultimately gravitate towards what it is that they're seeing that's being bolded here inside of this actual section. Now, to make it even more prominent, what we're going to do, one more thing here, is we're going to add what we call a list of things as an info list. And guys, the info list works very well for things like this that you see where it says like, oh, proven results and recognized excellence. This can actually come over here as a title. The second section underneath, which is the description part, can be, what her dedication is to that of the client. So you can see here, that's the title, that's the description. Watch how this looks like when you kind of add it to the page. You'll see how it's a little bit easier now to read. You see what I mean by that, Cheryl, right?
Yeah.
So
Wow.
rather than this being like, oh my goodness, so much block of text, watch if I duplicated these now. Take a look at that, right? So we wouldn't have to add all of them. Technically, we would just add enough to basically frame your photo. So the same size of your photo, we add those things off to the side. And let's add one more thing over here as well, too. why don't we add an icon right next to that as well too? And the icon is like a check mark, and that just kind of, maybe adds a little bit of some flavor here to the web page as well too. We'll change it to the same color of whatever brand that we got going on with our color. So that's it. Okay, perfect. And let me just add a couple more, three more boxes. So now you guys take a look at this, right? And if we just go
Beautiful.
back into ChatGPT, thank you, Cheryl. If you go back to ChatGPT and we say, okay, what other things do we have here? Well, she clearly mentioned she's an expert in rural small town properties. So why don't we make sure we add that component here as well too? So I'm going to go back in here, you guys. I'm going to edit that section right over here, change that to expertise in small time rural properties. I'm going to add that content in there as well too. So we'll go to, drop that in. And then the last thing we're going to drop in is that section that she mentioned where she loves to educate and she loves to empower. So let's go ahead and add that in there as well too. As you'll see over here, education and empowerment. And then the last part there, we'll just grab that text and we'll wrap it up with this, you guys, as I see that I'm on top of my time. And we'll kind of wrap it up with where you can find this recording and all that kind of good jazz here. But let's just take a look at this for Cheryl with just a quick couple tweaks and updates. I'm just going to open up this page now, you guys, side by side contrasted with this page. All right, somebody talk to me about this, eh? How nice is that, huh?
Looks great. Way,
Right?
way more personal and less generic. Yeah, way more.
Yeah,
Way more.
you got it. All right. So, guys, things like this is how you want to be thinking about your web page. And this is the kind of stuff that I'm going to be doing with this whole series of Brand Like a Boss. So, if you've been watching today's webinar and you're like, man, how do I get my name in the hat to be a part of your guys' like series? Reach out, drop me a line on an email. Obviously, this is all by invitation. So if you are interested, we only have so much space. Obviously, we're probably going to be doing this for about a good year. So I only have the opportunity to select about maybe 52 people within the next 12 months to be a part of this whole series. And like you're going to get a chance to see, by the way, we're going to try to get back to you guys by next week with a lot of these things already updated on Cheryl's website so that we get to start off the actual meeting showing you kind of the before and after of Cheryl's website from this to the brand new site and design that you're going to see for her that showcases her brand and gives her the edge that she needs to be able to really turn around and market this with confidence. Okay. Now, guys, as far as the recording goes, let me just quickly wrap it up with that. Mention where you can find that recording. For now, this webinar recording will be visible in the same section that you guys are currently familiar with. So in the back end, in the support section, hop over here to the knowledge base. When you click on that, scroll all the way down to the very bottom, click on weekly webinar series recordings, and that is where you're going to find all the recordings right over here. Okay. And so that is the actual section when it comes down to all the recordings. I'll add a brand new one right here underneath that says Brand Like a Boss, and you guys can come here, watch the recording. We're also going to start featuring these on YouTube as well too, so you'll be able to watch them on there as well, because it allows you to easily kind of go back and forth and kind of come back to your recording a little bit later if you don't watch the entire thing all in one go. So anyways, I think that's really it. Cheryl, any last words before we kind of close up for today?
No, this was amazing. I mean, just having you walk through it. And I reached out to Sanjeev and said, here, here's all the areas I'm struggling. I need some sort of coaching or help. And so I encourage other people to do so as well, because you can see how that went from generic and hard to digest to something that was way more warm, approachable. And that's what I wanted to convey, right? So excellent work, Sanjeev.
All right. Thank you so much, Cheryl. And I definitely did not pay you to say that. I'm joking, guys. No, seriously, no. Cheryl said that with complete authenticity. I really appreciate that, Cheryl. Guys, that's really what I'm here to do. I've spent about a whole year doing stuff for my real page as it relates to coaching education on that of the webinar side. Now I really want to take these tools and I want to go directly into your website and give you the upgrade that you need and the help and support that you really need. Okay. So, guys, thank you so much for your time today. Cheryl, thank you so much too. I'll follow up with you afterwards here and we'll go ahead and take it from there. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Awesome, you guys. Take care. Great being with everybody here. Bye bye now.